there's something called FidelityFX, and I'm not going to read the article to you in this video. I don't understand why people make videos reading articles and you listen to the person read the article when you could just go read it yourself, take your time, try and understand it, look up some of the key points. So essentially what FidelityFX is a way to take the stress off of the CPU and the GPU in certain areas and allow for other things. So essentially making hardware more powerful than it already is. And what I think is interesting about this technology, just thinking about it, again, because I own a Series S, I will be getting a Series X at some time, probably not soon, when those Microsoft first-party titles hit, and they're good, I'll probably upgrade. But what's interesting about it, when you think about the lowest common denominator of this generation, PS5, Xbox Series X, the Xbox Series S, that technology can bring the Series S that much closer to parity between these two beefy consoles. And I'm not saying that it's going to be the same as the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, but the idea that the Series S, would hold back the generation. That's something that you heard a lot of people talk about. That's a lot of videos were made about the Series S being the console that would hold back the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, because developers always code for the lowest common denominator. If you can create a suite of tools to allow a console like the Series S to do more with less, then you're going to get much more value out of that system, which means that you're going to get a higher gulf for third-party games than on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. So the idea that they're held back will be lessened because of FidelityFX. From what I gather, it's utilizing the SSD, the ultra-fast SSD in the Xbox Series consoles to take strain off of other areas. Developers can actually use that SSD at some points almost as extra RAM to store information. Now, it's interesting, if you think back to what Mark Cerny said during the PS5 keynote, the PS5 SSD, he made a big deal out of that, and it is much faster than the SSD in the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. They both have the same SSD. So it's conceivable that this technology or some form of it could be used on the PS5. And it is conceivable that Sony first-party developers are already working with that ultra-fast SSD in the PS5 to deliver experiences that scream next generation. So this is good both ways. I'm not sure if the AMD technology is going to be shared with the PS5 FidelityFX, but I'm assuming since both consoles are essentially the same AMD components, that at some point they will be. But it is confirmation that the SSD, making a big deal about the SSD early on with the PS5 and now with the Xbox Series consoles, is a valid feature for these next generation consoles. By the way, both of these games that you're seeing, Wolfenstein and Outriders, are being played on the Xbox Series S. And I can tell you, the Auto HDR feature for Wolfenstein and just the upgrade to Outriders, it's a completely different game. You can see how smooth it is, how fast it is, and everything looks a lot better. So I could imagine how much better it looks on the Xbox Series X. Just not quite there yet in terms of first party, but I'm waiting. But this FidelityFX thing, it is interesting and it's exciting because the idea of consoles and how much power they have, the whole idea of teraflops is something that most people just don't even talk about anymore, because most people understand that it really doesn't mean much. And the idea of, they both have the same CPU, they both essentially have the same GPUs. It all comes down to how much RAM is in the box and what the developers can do to lessen the strain on that CPU and on that GPU, and implement all new features and new technology, and to make the games look as great as they possibly can. So this is an exciting technology, and it's more exciting, in my opinion, when you think about the Xbox Series S, because again, that's the system that most people see as the lowest common denominator. And any tech or tool set that brings it more power, that gives it a little bit more to sort of breach that gap between what is coming in terms of next generation games, so that you'll see less of a difference. Maybe you're obviously going to see differences in resolution and frame rate, but in terms of graphics and what the games can do and the effects on screen, I think it's going to be very, very exciting. And I think a lot of people are going to be very shocked at what's able to be done on such a limited system as the Xbox Series S. And I'm having a great time with it now. So again, the SSD is probably the biggest key feature this generation for these consoles. Let me know what you think.